Look, I get it. You just closed a major case. And things with your mother are complicated. And hey, you found the swordsman, and believe me, we are grateful and in no position to ask for a favor. But there's a killer taking us out one by one, so we need Cassandra Killjoy to get back to work. After the apocalypse, when all the heroes have fallen and the dead walk in their stead, a small spark will bring hope to an otherwise undead universe. Happy Halloween, fanboys and fangirls. I'm Erod and I'm the Blockbuster Buster, and before I kick things off, I have to issue a few disclaimers. Number 1, Marvel Zombies is not for kids. This is a hard TVMA. This is a very, very violent, very, very gory show. And for those of you who think that your kids can handle the blood and guts, ask yourself this. Can your kids handle watching their favorite superheroes being brutally murdered in every other scene? Because I'm willing to bet they can't. Number 2, if you love the Marvel Zombies comic book series, I have bad news for you, because this show is nothing like the comic. Now, for those of you who don't know, Marvel Zombies, the comic, presented a world where most of the Marvel heroes and villains were turned into zombies. And not only did they retain their powers and abilities, but their consciousness as well. So the entire miniseries is told from the point of view of the monsters, which makes for a fascinating and unique read. The TV show is The Walking Dead with superheroes, which is very fun, but not as original. And number 3. This show is most definitely a sequel to the 5th episode of Marvel's What If, titled What If Zombies. Ugh, God, I hate that title. So you might want to give that episode a watch before jumping into this show. And now that the disclaimers are out of the way, let's start tearing through this horde. Secret Origins. As expected, this zombie virus began with Disney+. As most of you know, Disney had a very ambitious strategy to launch their streaming service, one that included original content from all of their top brands. From Marvel Studios, they wanted original series, both live action and animated. The contract they drew for the animated shows had an option that if the first show, What If, was successful, they could commission 3 more animated shows from Marvel. Many shows were pitched while What If Season 1 was in production, with a concentration on spin-offs, so they could build on the assets that were created for What If. It is important to note that Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige is a massive fan of the Marvel Zombies comic and had been trying to get a movie off the ground for years, but was curtailed at every turn, as Disney outright refused to make an R-rated Marvel movie. Boy, have things changed.
Suck it, Fox. I'm going to Disneyland.
Suffice it to say, when Big Kev and the head of Marvel Animation, Brad Winderbaum, saw What If Zombies, they were overjoyed. Not only did they like the episode, but they finally had the perfect opportunity to execute one of their biggest passion projects. So there you go, Marvel Zombies was made simply because the boss wanted to make it. It was not made because What If Zombies was the most successful episode of What If. With that said, it was definitely the most talked about episode, having as many supporters as it had detractors, who objected to the inaccuracies to the source material, as well as all the goofball humor amidst some of the most disturbing and tragic moments in the franchise. But sometimes attention is all you need, because when it's all said and done, Kevin Feige was right. Marvel Zombies would go on to be one of the most successful animated premieres on Disney+, garnering over 14 million views on top of the initial projected views. And as I am recording this, it is the most watched show on Disney+ with a TVMA rating. And that, my friends, is why Kevin is the boss. The plot. 5 years after the events of What If Zombies, the world is a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and via happenstance, Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, comes across a transmitter that can summon the Nova Corps, whose technology could potentially end the plague. So, she goes on an arduous cross-country trip to first find the right equipment to activate the transmitter, and then get to the upper atmosphere to send out the signal. A journey that will see her lose allies, gain allies, and face many new enemies. The primary of which is the zombie Scarlet Witch, who has an army of the undead at her command.
Cast and characters.
Very much like What If, the cast of this series was largely determined by what MCU actors were still under contract. And I'm not gonna name names, but it's painfully obvious that some of them are not trained voice actors. Now, Elizabeth Olsen isn't bad, but it's just painfully apparent that she recorded her lines alone without other actors to bounce off of, because the difference in quality between this and her on-camera work is staggering. Not bad, just staggering. Now, as far as the trained voice actors are concerned, I think we can all agree who stole the show. Todd Williams as Blade Knight. Yes, it is not Mahershala Ali playing Blade in this series. That's how far behind Marvel Studios is with the Blade franchise. They haven't even locked that man into a multi-picture deal. Now, why is Blade Moon Knight in this? Well, according to showrunners Seb Well and Brian Andrews, they were instructed to include Blade. But as we know, the Blade franchise in the MCU is yet to get any traction. So they had no idea what the MCU Blade would be like. So, by making him Khonshu's new avatar after the presumed death of Mark Spector, they created a new character that they could do whatever the hell they wanted with. But here's the thing, it's still just Blade, but with an imaginary friend, further proving that it's not that hard to adapt this character. That's right, Marvel Studios, I said it. But the reason why I don't come down harder on the contract players and their voice acting is because the two that mattered the most did the best job. The first of which was Simu Liu as Shang-Chi, playing a version of the character who never went on his hero's journey, whose only concern is to survive and protect his friends. But it is through Kamala's example that he becomes the hero that he was meant to be.
In the end, what he really wanted was one last chance to fight, and you gave that to him. You gave that to all of us.
And of course, Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan. For someone who has never done voiceover before, Iman is amazing in this, running the full gamut of emotions in the course of just 4 episodes, facing tragedy after tragedy and only the occasional small triumph. Iman was put to the test over and over again, and each and every time she passed with flying colors.
Hey, what do we say about the ones we lose? We honor them.
With every breath we take.
Chapter 1.
While this entire miniseries is just over 2 hours long, it is 2 hours of bad road. There's an old saying that before your characters can succeed, you have to make them bleed. And boy, do our heroes bleed. Make no mistake about it, this is 100% a horror show. Harsh, unrelenting, and gory. Suffice it to say, this is not your daddy's Marvel show. The show is packed with amazing sequences, but I have to single out one. The opening of episode 2, affectionately nicknamed by the fans, Z-Day. We actually see the exact moment in which the zombie plague started, which according to What If Zombies, was during the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Only here, we see things from the point of view of Shang and his best friend Katie, as all of San Francisco falls into absolute chaos. And we see the events unfold in real time during one continuous shot. And oh my freaking god, does this shot go hard.
Wait, how are you? You can fight?
Now, with all that said, I do have one legitimate complaint about the miniseries, and that is that it doesn't end. It just stops. Kamala confronts Wanda, who intends to use the untamed power of the Infinity Stones to change reality, and it is implied that Kamala restored everything to the way it was before the plague, only to shockingly discover that she is actually in one of Wanda's hexes, just trapped in an illusion. Now, as great as this series is, I feel that not giving it a definitive ending is a disservice to the fans. The good news is that while originally Marvel Zombies was planned as a one and done, now because of all the success the miniseries has had, they are actually planning a follow-up. Now, is this follow-up gonna be another season, a special, or a movie? We don't know. Only time will tell.
Final verdict.
They say that heroes are forged from tragedy. The question is, was this too much tragedy? As well made as this miniseries is, it is emotionally draining, as every other scene sees at least one of our heroes meet their end in the most harsh and unnecessarily graphic of ways. With that said, the tragedy does pave the way for what is, in my opinion, the best Kamala Khan story that Marvel Studios has told to date, pushing our young heroine to her limits and showcasing just how much she is capable of, which makes it all the more of a disservice that this series does not have a proper ending. So for that reason, I give it a 9. Now, if they do produce a follow-up and they do give it a proper ending, I might just go back and change my rating. Until then, I'm Erod, and I'm the Blockbuster Buster.